Okay, it says, I have to say, got it. I know how to do other things, but computers are not my forte, mainly because my theory is that if I can't hug it, it's not a part of my life. So I can't hug a computer. So zeu. But there are some little plates here, and maybe I'll get napkins also.
Wow. This is real hospitality.
Okay. We have napkins, but I just want to tell you that the reason we're having oranges is something specific, and I will tell you later during this whole thing. So are we starting, Leah?
Yes, it's recording.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. All right, Shlomo, are you going to school? Okay, thank you. My grandson lives with me. My daughter's third son. And he's studying to be a nurse. Okay, everybody. Ta-da! I just want to say that actually yesterday, but it was Shabbos, so I didn't have a chance to do this yesterday, but I did tell the story to some of my grandchildren. I was in Hebron at my daughter's house, and actually all her children, all her Bli Ayin Hara 6 children were there, and her oldest son is married, and he has 3 little girls. So all the children and grandchildren from my daughter were there. We were all sleeping. I don't know, I wasn't, but the children were sleeping on mattresses all over. So it was really wonderful. It was really wonderful to hi Rivka. It was really wonderful to be able to be in Hebron, Ir HaKodesh, telling the story that happened with me 65 years ago. So I just want to say that the main reason I'm telling this story, not because it's an interesting story, and not everybody has such a thing in their life. But the main reason I want to tell the story over is because I'm just so grateful to Hashem that we are here in Eretz Yisrael, and I'm able to be with my children and grandchildren, great grandchildren. Shkoya, thank you. And I'm so grateful for every step of the way that Hashem has directed my life, because Bekitzer, I was born during the war in Budapest, and it's a miracle. Like everybody's a miracle. Everyone's moments are, is a miracle. But I'm especially grateful because I could have been any of the thousands and thousands, millions of children who were not granted to live in this lifetime. And I trust Hashem very much, completely. I'm working on the completely part. That whatever happens in our lives is the way that Hashem has designed creation, and we're playing each of the puzzle pieces out. So, that being said, Baruch Hashem, my parents made it through the war. My father was one of the people who made it through the war, and the other person, actually, of his family was a younger brother. Everybody else did not come back from wherever they were taken. Actually, I met my father when I was 13 months old. That's when he came back from slave labor camp. And my mother and I, Baruch Hashem, we were in Budapest. And that's a separate, set series of stories, but miracle after miracles, that, how it just so happened that we were not taken. I have a niece, my sister's oldest daughter, was a writer, and she wrote a novel based on my father's story. And one of the editions of the book, by the way, it's called The Invisible Bridge, and her name is Julie Oringer. It's worth reading the book because she's an excellent writer. And so anyway, one of the editions starts with a poem. I don't know exactly the poem, but it is approximately that because there were trees, because there were no trees, because it was raining, and because it was sunny, because it was night, because it was day, people made it, or they didn't. So it was not possible to know who's going to live through the war or not. And it just so happens that my mother and I did make it. And actually, sometimes I tell the story from like the war on until we got to 1956, which is when we escaped from Hungary. L'chaim. אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל נהיה בדברו.
Amen.
I don't know how much history you know, but I really didn't pay too much to history books because I felt like I lived this period.
Yeah.
But Hungary was liberated by the Russians from the Nazis. Once I asked my uncle, who was my father's brother, who was in Siberia for 5 years during the war, among other things, like, what kind of craziness is this, that the Russians liberated Hungary from the Nazis, and the Russians were not so much better. They were killing millions and millions of people, and living under communist rule was dangerous. People were disappearing for apparently no known reason, except somebody may have said something to someone that maybe this person did this and this and that. That was the end of that person. So that's the kind of government that we had. And to tell you the truth, my life in Hungary was nice because my parents somehow were able to, they were magicians. They were able to make something beautiful out of nothing. And we had a very nice life. We had a very nice apartment. And because my father was so ambitious, he built a little house in the Pest part, the Buda part of Budapest, because the Pest part is the industrial, yeah, I don't know, that's where people lived, but the Buda part was mountainous, and it was for vacation, like it was, all you had to do is go across the bridge, and then you were in Buda, and that was vacation already. We used to go to the Danube during the summers, and when the doctor told my parents that I needed mountain air, my father said, okay, then we're building a little house. He used to take, first of all, you couldn't get any building materials unless it was maybe black market. And he was, sometimes he was able to get like a bag of cement, and he took it on his back, on his motorcycle before work. And that's how he gathered the material. And we did have a little house. And I remember once one of the neighbors came over and was surprised that my mother was working early in the morning, late at night. And this neighbor thought that we were just wealthy. That's why we had this house. But my parents were working mamash day and night. And that's how life was. So, but we had music lessons and dance lessons, and except school was like tyranny. It really was. In a communist run country, you didn't have the ability to not to succeed. You had to prove yourself, that you had to work for the good of everyone, supposedly. And school was run like that. Like we were given assignments, and there was no failing, because we were not allowed to fail. Because how can you fail if like your a friend who's sitting next to you would get damaged? The truth is, as we know, that is really true. In Yiddishkeit, we know that if we do something that is not good for us, it injures others as well. So, but they took it a little, like too seriously in a not very nice way. Anyway, so in 1956, or by 1956, many, especially students, had enough of this communist government, and lo and behold, they staged a revolution. In fact, I remember very clearly, I was going home from piano lesson, and there were thousands and thousands of people on the street, and they were putting up these posters, and they were shouting and screaming, and talking about the revolution and taking over the communist government. And I went home and I told my mother that there's a revolution. And she said, what? Like nobody really knew about it. It wasn't like millions of people or even thousands and thousands of people who were responsible for this. But yes, there was a number of there were a number of people who had enough and wanted to throw the communist government flat out. And there were battles. They were not equipped in ways that that they could have won for a long time against this huge Soviet rule. So, but I have to say that for 7 days, Hungary was a free country. And I remember on the radio that Hungary was broadcasting to the world to help us. And on Radio Free Europe. And but nobody really came to help. And the Hungarians really took a beating. Many people were killed in the battle. And but Hungary became a free country. That meant that people could leave the country, because under communist government, you couldn't even move from one apartment to another without permission. So it was like a huge difference that people were able to leave. So during that time, you could leave by cars or trains or airplane or I don't know, any kind of vehicle to Austria, which was the only free country surrounding Hungary. All the other countries like Czechoslovakia, Russia, Romania, etc., they were bordering Hungary, but they were under communist rule, so nobody wanted to go there. So the only escape was toward Austria. So then the Russians came in with heavy artillery about 7 days after this happened. And I remember we were living in an apartment building, and I remember the tanks were rolling in front of our street. In front of our building. My mother told us to, lie down on the floor until they passed, because they were shooting. They were buildings were being shot at, and people were being killed, and people were and it was war. It was really war. It's called a revolution because of the way it happened, but war it was. And so the Russians came back and they took over Hungary again. So, but the Hungarians tend not to give up too easily. And during that time, after the Russians took over, a lot more Hungarians thought, hey, maybe we will be able to sneak out. And from that on, yes, there were a lot of people, like thousands of people who were able to escape. Now, it wasn't like the government wasn't watching out because yes, police and the army was on the lookout, but it somehow, being very ambitious, people who lived near the border of Austria all of a sudden became expert tour guides for a lot of money, and they were somehow with not through the phone, but word of mouth. Somehow people found out that this person is available, that person is available, and people left pitom, like from one minute to another. And I have to say that a lot of people did leave. Thousands of people left. And I have to say also that a lot of people were caught. It wasn't so easy. But the yearning to be having a better life for themselves and for their future, they were willing to risk their lives. And actually yesterday I was thinking, aside from willing to risk people's lives, their lives, people's absolute yearning to have a better future for themselves and for their families was so powerful that people really didn't care what happened with them. They were ready to risk their lives, everybody's life, for this possibility. So that's what happened with like 13. Hi, Gabi.
Can I come in?
Please come in, please. People, mamash, were ready to risk their lives for this possibility. Gabi is also from Hungary. I don't know what her story is, but whatever. She wasn't one of the 56ers. Anyway, it takes either like a huge amount of emunah and a lot of chutzpah to be able to do such a thing. I know that there were 13 people in my family, my immediate family, who were able to escape at different times. One of my aunts, my mother's younger sister, she was like the cool cat of the family. She wasn't married yet. She was like maybe 28 years old, something like that. And she left. We heard that she made it. Again, not through email or anything at all, but we did hear that she made it through Austria. And a couple of weeks later, my father needed to pick up something from my other aunt and her family, and he was scheduled to pick up whatever it was in the afternoon, and that's when he went to my aunt's house, just to be told secretly by a neighbor who I guess was trusted, that my aunt and her family also escaped that morning. And actually that family, it was a large extended family, and thank you. And they went by truck. Somehow they were hiding. They were hiding under things in a truck, like children, adults, for hours. so that's how they escaped. One of the children who was on that truck, my cousin, her name is also Judy. She lives in Los Angeles. So Baruch Hashem, they also made it. Some of those people live in Eretz Israel, in Petach Tikva and Holon, those places. And a few weeks later, a few days, I can't tell you when, there was a rumor that the Hungarian army is calling in men. And my father heard that and immediately contacted his brother, who the one I mentioned, who was in Siberia, and neither of them wanted to be in the army or have anything to do with the army anymore. So somehow, by miracle, they were able to find someone to take them out. My uncle, and actually his family of a wife and two little children. The younger, actually one of my cousins is on here, and if I would be able to see him, then I saw him before. Anyway, he was about, I think, 4 years old, 3.5, 4 years old, when the revolution was. And so my father went with them, and my very, very brave aunt's mother accompanied them to the border, and she did not go across because she had a husband who wasn't well, and she didn't want to leave him. Anyway, so she went back, but Baruch Hashem, they also made it. The only people who were left in our family, our immediate family, were my grandmother and my mother and my 8-year-old sister and I. I was 12. And so we wanted to leave, but we didn't know that we will be at all. But one day, it was already December. Like, I don't know, maybe it was around December 18th, 19th, something like that. There were two men who knocked on our door and said that they were sent by our relatives from Austria. Somehow they had word that we were there, and they were able to be in that category of tour guides, and they said that they could take us across. Now, they could have said that. We didn't know for sure, but my mother kind of checked it out, asked questions, and it seemed like that they could be trusted. They saw that there was an older lady and two little children, and they said that they can't take all of us at once. We have to split up. Of course, my mother definitely didn't want to leave her mother, so my grandmother went first. By the way, these men were working on the railroad, and so they knew the ins and outs, and they also lived close to the border, and they knew where the border was. I just want to say that the border wasn't straight. The border was going, like curly, and and in and out. So a lot of times people may have gone out from Hungary into Austria, and never they found themselves back in Hungary again. And a lot of times that was big trouble, because then they were caught. So Baruch Hashem, a few days later, these men came back for my mother and my sister and I. Now, I didn't tell you that during this time when the Russians were taking over, it was still war. They were wanting to kill people for no apparent reason. Actually, my aunt, with her two little children, I left this juicy part out, were at our house because their house was bombed out, and they didn't have any windows. It was November, December, and it was cold. So they were at our house, and somehow the children got sick, and we called the doctor to come and examine them and see what he could do for them. And he was with really sobbing. He said he can't come now because his son was just killed. These things were happening, and the very interesting part during those 7 days, by the way, all the storehouses that were marked for export were available. All of a sudden, food and clothes and all kinds of amenities that Hungary was producing, but it wasn't for the Hungarians. It was for export. So during that time, there was food available. When the Russians came back, again, there was hardly any food. And during this wartime, I remember once my mother said she has to get some bread or something, and she went downstairs, but we never knew if she'll ever come back. So it was under those conditions that we were living for all these, months. Anyway, I left out another little backtrack, that it just so happened because my father and his brother were well-known artists in the art of window dressing and exhibition work, and it was a very noble art in Hungary to be a kirakatrendező. So my uncle actually was sent out to Moscow like right before the revolution started, and he was not able to come back for weeks and weeks. Actually, he wrote a book, a memoir, and he describes the goings on, how he was able to. He was a very resourceful person, I have to say, but he was able to, after several weeks, manage to come back to Hungary. So going back to where I kind of left off, that the time that my father and my uncle and his family were able to leave, etc. So came turn for my mother and my sister and I to leave. So my mother told us that we're going to be leaving. So my sister and I went to our toy closet, which was, if I remember that it was this big, it was probably smaller. Anyway, we started packing. And my mother said, no, can't take anything. We're escaping. But my sister started crying. She said, because she had a favorite doll. She said, how can a mother leave her baby? And my mother had Rahmanas on her. She really had a really beautiful doll that was very special. It was like this big. We still have the doll. So my mother had let her, my nieces have the doll, because it was their mother's. So anyway, my mother let her take the doll, and I thought, okay, if she's taking something, I also want to take something. So my most precious possession was a set of color pencils that my father brought me from Czechoslovakia once when he was sent out on a mission to do some exhibit work. And and actually, when I was telling the story yesterday at my daughter's house, my daughter started laughing because she said, that's really funny, because my sister became a pediatrician and I became an interior designer. So we were kind of true to our succession. Anyway, so the other things that we brought was, since my mother was the most supreme dressmaker in the whole entire creation, she would sew on a button and it would become like, oh my gosh, this is so gorgeous. So she brought her thread and needle and pair of scissors and a thimble. She had two other things that she put into this little box that we were carrying. One was a comforter that she has no idea how she still had from before the war, but we were able to roll it up really small. And there was an etching that my father gave my mother from some money that I somehow he got some money while he was in slave labor camp, or I don't know exactly the story, but that's what he bought her, and those were the items that we took with us, and anything else was just our clothes. Now we had to kind of also figure out how we're going to pay for this trip, and we had a neighbor who had been eyeing our piano for years. And my mother, and she told my mother that anytime that she would want to sell the piano, she should tell her, and she's ready to buy it. So my mother thought, okay, so let's try, because we had to have some money for these men. So she thought of this idea that she needs emergency money because there was a very big problem that happened with the little house in the country, that there were frozen pipes and everything is needing repair, and she needs money like right away. That's what she told the neighbor. Anyway, so that's how we were able to afford escaping with these men. Anyway, how are we doing the time?
6:15.
6:50.
6.
Wow. Okay. We'll run. Anyway, the instructions were that that we were supposed to meet these two men at the main railroad station that was going toward the west. And of course, it was not a possibility to tell anyone, and except to not to be too suspicious. My mother told our neighbors that she had this big plumbing problem and she'll have to leave early in the morning, the next morning, to go to the country to have the plumbing fixed, so they wouldn't suspect that she was just closing the door on anything material that my father and my mother worked from below Ephes of their possessions after the war. Everything had to be started all over. Just it's an unbelievable thing that a person would have this much will to, and chutzpah and emunah and craziness, like a different kind of mindset, to just leave and go toward that absolutely unknown possibility, hoping that it will be a probability, and wanting so much for their children to have a future that was not possible from their perspective in this particular situation under a communist government. So actually, my mother took us, my sister and I, to her cousin's house to sleep there, because she didn't want the neighbors to see that she is leaving in the morning with her children. So so by the way, this cousin, her first cousin, used to be the head of the radio in Hungary, and he was one of the first people who was arrested and thrown into jail when the revolution broke out, because the Hungarians wanted to get rid of all the communists. He was a Yid, but on paper he was this big communist. So that's how people lived. By the way, I went back to Hungary once, just because, as I mentioned, my niece wrote a book, and it came out in Hungarian also. It was translated into Hungarian, and she was invited to first of all, to university. She teaches writing, literature, etc. So she was invited to a few universities in Hungary, and I thought, my sister isn't alive anymore, and I thought I'll go with her. So I did go. I did go with her, and I went back to Dohain Templum, and this big synagogue, and where my grandmother used to daven, and I took a like a tour, whatever. They didn't let me go up to the women's section. They said that it's only open during the high holidays, but I wanted to see where we used to look down, where my father was davening on the first floor, on ground floor, but that didn't happen. But what I did find out, which I didn't know, as I told you, I wasn't aware of history so much, But a lot of the new communist government was made up of Jews, and they put a lot of money. I was told on that tour that that they put 24 kilos of gold for renovating that shul, and because they were really Yidden, but they were communists. So anyway, I don't know exactly why I backtracked, but so yes, because of my cousins, my mother's cousin. Anyway, so my mother came to pick us up early in the morning. That that morning, it was December 20. It's Christmas night, the night of 24.
24.
Okay, so it was 24, morning of the 24. So she came early in the morning to pick us up, and I still remember the fireplace. I was watching the fire the whole night. I couldn't really sleep. I was like a little bit excited or scared, or I'm not sure exactly, nervous. But we did meet the two men at the railroad station, and we were instructed to go to the first car that was after the engine, and so we boarded the train, and we were also told by my mother that if someone asks us where we're going, we have to tell them that we're going to relatives for the holiday. We thought that maybe if we have to say that, maybe our teeth are going to fall out, or I'm not sure what, because it was just not not in our lives. And also my mother told my sister that if anybody asks, where did you get that doll from? So she was supposed to say that little JC brought it, because in Hungary, this holiday is a very religious holiday, and Eden really didn't have anything to do with it. But there was a separate holiday for Santa Claus Day, December 6th, for all children. So it wasn't like Santa brought the presents on this holiday, but it was baby JC. So anyway, we were hoping that nobody will ask, and I don't remember if anybody asked, but whatever. So the instructions were that when the train left the main station, a few minutes later, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, the train stopped, and my mother was asked to run from the car to the engine, which is where she was hiding the whole day. And that meant that my sister and I were by ourselves.
Why she needed to go there?
Huh?
Why she needed to go there?
Why she didn't know?
Why
Why
she
you
needed
needed
to
to
go
go to the?
Well, because the authorities, hi, welcome, have a seat. Because the train was being checked by soldiers and police. It was not. We were escaping, and if they would have asked for papers and I don't know what,
I see.
she would not have been able to say anything anything. And that could have been our,
It's
you know.
not suspicious to children traveling alone.
So the premise was that maybe the authorities are not going to bother two little girls.
Mhm.
So Baruch Hashem, I don't know, these two men were working that day and they were checking on us intermittently.
Wow.
They came sometimes, and I'm 100% sure that the people who were sitting across the aisle from us knew what was happening, because we were dressed a little more elegantly than Parastok. And but they didn't say anything. And we were on the train for the whole day. Of course, it was like December 24th, and it got dark early. And when the train pulled into the last stop, by the way, there were police and soldiers checking. But when we got to the last stop, my sister and I were instructed to get off the train and go behind a certain building. And after the train kind of parks and goes to wherever it has to go, my mother is going to be able to come out of the engine and is going to meet us behind that building. Now, of course, again, like, who knew that they were telling the truth? They were already paid, so they could have said anything and they could have done anything. But Baruch Hashem, they were honest. And we did meet my mother, and only to hear their request that since it was a holy night, and they really wanted to be celebrating the holiday with their family, would we please let them do that, and we would sleep at one of their houses, and they'll come back to pick us up the following night after the holiday is over. So we didn't really have a choice, and we said yes. And so they took us to this man's house. I have to tell you, probably that apartment, it was a basement apartment of a nice large house. It was probably not larger than this room. It consisted of a kitchen that was the size of this table, and another room. And he had 2 children and a wife. And I remember my mother opening the drawer in the kitchen and seeing a couple of knives and a couple of spoons and forks. They were very, very, very poor. Anyway, we did sleep there, and being supreme Hakmasat Orchim people who lived in the main house invited us for their holiday lunch. And I still remember the smell of the chicken soup that really didn't smell like my mother's chicken soup at all. And we didn't really feel like eating. I don't know what we did eat, maybe a potato or 2, or I don't know what. But it wasn't like, wow, like, they were really very nice to do that, because they could have also reported us and reported our guide. Anyway, we thanked them very much, and pretty soon it was again dark, and the 2 men did come back for us, and they said, okay, we're ready. Now, mind you, it was December 25th already. And there was snow on the ground. It wasn't like over here, December 25th. Usually there's no snow. There wasn't yesterday at all. And I didn't hear anything that there was snow on the Hermon either. But yes, there was pretty deep snow. And they said that it will take us, they don't know how long, because it depends on the searchlights, because people, the government knew that people were trying to escape. So they had searchlights around the border. And we were, I remember just going on like fields, but the railroad was going there. There were railroad tracks going to Austria, and we were told that whenever the searchlight comes, we have to duck into the ditch. I mean, that's where we were walking. We were walking and walking, and it was cold. For about 3.5 hours, we were walking, and at some around that point, one of the men said, "You see those lights in the distance? That's also already Austria." So we were really very, very grateful that at least we saw some, lights that we could go toward. But the problem was that all we had to do is cross a frozen lake. And I really remember being scared, because we knew that the lake was frozen enough to support us. Even though it was cold, I was kind of afraid that what if the ice breaks and that's going to be it. Anyway.
Excuse me, was it the Fairturtle?
What?
Was it the Fairturtle?
It was a what?
It's there is a lake in that
I don't know.
area.
I have no idea what lake it was.
But it was pretty long, yeah?
I don't know. I don't know. I just know that it was before we got to the lights.
Other side.
And we were walking, like ducks with our feet apart, so we wouldn't put pressure on one spot. And so Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, we did make it. And we were still going toward the lights. And Baruch Hashem, we got to the building. It was late at night already. And that place was either an inn or a restaurant, or I don't know, some kind of eatery. And immediately when we went in, the people knew what the score was, and they were really very, very welcoming.
This was in Austria.
What?
This was in Austria.
It was in Austria.
You
Yeah,
crossed.
that was already when we crossed the lake. That was already Austria. And so, yeah, Baruch Hashem, they helped us peel our frozen outer clothes, and it wasn't, like really protective clothes. It wasn't Eddie Bauer for sure. And they gave us something to eat, something to drink, something warm. I have to tell you, one of the things that I remember was something that I had never seen before, because under communist rule, luxuries weren't, so prevalent. And I'm sure this would have been a luxury. there was a jukebox there with 45 records, and somebody put money into it, and the record came down, and it started playing, and I was fascinated with this thing, with this machine that was able to play music. Anyway, it's funny what keeps recorded in one's mind. Anyway, when we were sufficiently warmed up, we were escorted. By the way, the men went back when we got to this place. The men went back. Of course, we thanked them and wished them a safe journey back, because they had to sneak back. So we were escorted to the middle of the town was the school, and the school was converted into a Red Cross station for all the escaped people, refugees. So they were again very welcoming. This was like very holiday-ish mood, because like it was a big holiday, and so they still had all kinds of little presents for everybody. Like I remember getting a pencil with I don't know, all kinds of designs on them, whatever it was, and they gave us some chocolate, and they were very, very nice. And since we were the last ones arriving, we had our mattress put next to the source of heat, what a kai hot, and we were given some mattresses to lie down on. The room was fairly, I think they were, fairly full, and it was a school room that was converted into this dormitory. Anyway, in the morning, when we woke up, my mother looked next to her, and there was this man. She said, "Hello, good morning." I mean, in Hungarian, of course. My name is so-and-so, Irene, and I'm glad that you're here too. So we kind of breathed a big, like big breaths, that this is unbelievable that we were able to make it. It was like, if we really think about it, it was something of a miracle that we were able to escape. So that was like the first, like, wow, how can we take this all in? But we also knew that we had our relatives waiting for us, Baruch Hashem, in Vienna, except my mother had some kind of an address that one of my aunts was supposed to be at this place. And we were asking directions as to how to get there. And of course, we didn't have any shillings. We didn't have any Austrian money. But mamash, people saw immediately what the situation was, and they were so welcoming. I remember, and this is one of the reasons I have oranges on the table. I remember this woman taking an orange out of her purse and giving it to us. And they were also giving us small change to whatever. And whatever they may have had in their purse that they were able to give to us, they were happy for us. And they were really very, very, very sweet. We did get to this address just to find out that my aunt was not there anymore. And so our next assignment to ourselves was to find everybody in Vienna. Now, there were a lot of people, a lot of Hungarians in Vienna, walking on the street, and there was a joke that, if you just had a little bit of a brain, you would still be in Hungary. And then the other one said, what? I said, yeah, because if you had a little more, you're here. Csak beszéd volt, akkor még Magyarországon lennél. Anyway, so, de ha egy kicsit több, akkor itt, ha itt vagy. Anyway, so Baruch Hashem, people knew each other, and we were instructed that yes, this person saw one of my relatives, and we should go whatever place. But we also found out that these days that we were not in touch with my father, he and his brother were thrown into jail, because not everyone who escaped was a good person. They were communists and Nazis, and like everybody. It wasn't, first of all, it wasn't only a Jewish thing. It was Hungarians. So my father and his brother were accused to be communists, and that's why they were taken into jail until they were able to prove that wasn't it. Anyway, Baruch Hashem, we did get to see our relatives, to meet our relatives, and the either Jayas or Hayas and the American government were helping us, all of the refugees, to be put into hotels. And that's another reason why I have oranges, because in Hungary, we didn't have oranges, except I remember my cousin who lives in Los Angeles, her birthday is on December 22nd. So that was kind of orange season. And once she received an orange for her birthday, and everybody got a little piece of orange at that birthday party. So when we got to Austria, we were able to buy oranges or receive oranges. And the whole hotel where we stayed smelled like oranges. And now I have to tell you that anytime I smell an orange, my memory takes me back to that fragrance. So some people are literally crazy, Anyway, Baruch Hashem, we met everyone, and America provided a stoop kitchen, and we used to eat our meals there. I remember they asked tea, coffee. They had like a cafeteria, and because we were children, we were gifted some Hershey bars and things like that. And also somehow we were given some money from, maybe again from the Americans and Jayas. Also, not only did that jail thing happen with my father and brother, but because America really was kind of wanting to sponsor, this was a political thing, that now they could, help these Hungarians go to America. And at that time, Richard Nixon was the vice president, and he was sent to this place where my father and brother and family were. And he happened to see my little cousin, who was a year and a half, this little blonde cutie girl. and we even have a photograph of Richard Nixon holding her and saying, "What a cute little girl! What a pretty little girl! She's going to go to America." And we also have a photograph with Nixon and Mrs. Nixon. What was her name? Nancy? Huh? Pat. Yeah. Okay. My father and brother have this photograph. Anyway, the American government wanted to help the refugees. And on top of that, Baruch Hashem, my mother had two brothers in America. One was from before the war, and one was, I think, right after the war. I don't exactly know when the second brother went to America, but one was in Miami with his family, and one was in Los Angeles with his family. So they were sponsoring us. They wanted to, or they were gracious enough to say that they're going to be responsible for us. Actually, they were kind of scared because they didn't know what these refugees were all about. But I have to say that at my sister's graduating from medical school, my uncle thought, okay, so I guess they were worthy enough to be sponsored, but that was years later. Anyway, Baruch Hashem, because of the sponsorship, we were only in Austria for about 2 weeks. And some people, mamash, were there for months trying to get out. So again, if I remember the story correctly, we were given permission to go to America, but it was only for close relatives, like my grandmother and the three sisters, and their close, like their immediate family. And my uncle and his family, they were not immediate family, so they were not given permission. And somehow, again, I think it was Nixon again who helped my uncle and family leave. So Bekitzer, we had actually a very sweet time in Vienna. Somehow during the trip, the doll's shoe, one of her shoes, got lost, and there happened to be a big toy store kind of across the street from the hotel where we're staying, and we didn't know German, but one of my aunts knew German and taught us enough to go to the store and ask for a pair of shoes for the dolly. And we kind of, spit out the words, but we were gifted with a pair of little red lacquer shoes for the doll, which she still has. Anyway, so these kinds of things were happening. I remember going to a little makholet in Vienna. They had dates and figs and all kinds of dried fruits and nuts and coffee and tea, and the whole place smelled so delicious, and we couldn't believe that like this people can buy. So I guess with whatever little money that we had, we bought a few things, and then we were told that our trip is laid out, and we were going to be traveling from Vienna to a German port, where we were going to be boarding a American Navy ship because we were refugees. By the way, wherever we went, we were given all kinds of toiletries, soap and toothbrushes, toothpaste, whatever, toiletries. And we were also given this bag that I don't know who remembers, but they used to have on airplanes, like airplane bags, like blue bags written TWA or Delta or whatever it was. But our bags had United States SKP program. And we were all given these bags. So remember that. Anyway, we were all, carrying this bag very, very happily and very proudly. And it was time to board the train, but we had to stop in Salzburg. I think we stayed there overnight, and my sister and I were given a little bit of money to buy something, and we thought, okay, so we're going to buy something for the boat ride. So we bought a bazooka gum, and we also bought a package of lifesavers. So that was our big, like our big present for the trip. So anyway, but again, the Nazis got a little freilich in Salzburg, because my sister and I were playing downstairs in front of the building where we were staying, and all of a sudden my mother started screaming for us to get upstairs, because she heard that some Nazis got into the kitchen, and they were coming to rescue the Jews' lives with big knives. So Baruch Hashem, they were caught in time, that we were not reached, and we were able to safely board the train again to go to the boat. I'm trying to remember the name of the port, but right now I don't remember, but I do remember the name of the boat. It was SS General Elting. That was the name of the boat, and 1,500 freedom fighters were welcomed on this Navy ship.
Wow.
It wasn't a luxury liner, but I do remember that my grandmother did have a room, like a cabin, and the rest of us were on, like bunks. Anyway, the boat ride, if I remember correctly, was about 11 days, and it was already like beginning of February, so it wasn't great weather, and the boat was rocking. And we were not used to being rocked so much, and people were getting a little ill. And but one day, my sister and I thought, okay, so maybe it's time to take out the bazooka gum, but we didn't know that it was so sweet, and it kind of made us sick. So we thought, no more bubble gum. We thought, anyway, we were not used to such sweet things. So that was one thing that I remember, an occasion. And one day, because we were not used to American food, one day the Hungarians said, okay, this is it. We're taking over the kitchen. We're making paprikasgrundli. So, but on the way there, my mother kind of got sick, and we got there too late, and there was no more Hungarian food, and I was so upset with my mother. I really, I'm sorry to say, but I was really upset. Anyway, there was, as I mentioned, there was American food, and they had, for breakfast, they had these little packages of cereal, like Post, sugar crisps, and cornflakes and things like that. And we had no idea what these foods were. And the cornflakes looked as if they were like little potato chips or something. We thought potato chips, but it didn't taste like potato chips at all. Anyway, we were a little surprised at the taste of these things. But we did, Baruch Hashem, made it through the journey. And there's one other thing that I remember quite clearly. Again, my Kukat aunt gave us a nickel. I don't know, maybe a sailor, because she was so cute, must have given her a nickel or something. She gave it to my sister and I, because there was a Coca-Cola machine on the deck of the boat. It was one of those machines that you put in your nickel, and a cup comes down, and syrup spritzes into the cup, and soda spritzes from the other side. Okay, so we put our nickel in, and somehow during the cycle of this, the syrup ran out. So we had this drink. So we tasted the drink, and my sister said, this doesn't taste so good. If the Americans like this kind of drink, I don't know if I'm gonna like America. So, and I still don't drink Coca-Cola. But anyway, it's too sweet. It's whatever. It's not anything that I would want to put into my body. But at least we have this memory. And Baruch Hashem, after these 11 days, after circumventing a big storm, we did arrive early morning in the New York Harbor. So we got up early. It was dark, and in the distance we saw this long line of lights, and I thought, this must be a long train, but it kept going and going and going, and thought, a train can't be this long. Or maybe in America they have such long trains, I don't know. But it got to be a little bit more visible. And I realized that there were cars on the FDR, which I found out later. I didn't know about FDR. Anyway, it's a highway. And I thought, wow, all these cars, we didn't know that there were so many cars in the world. And also all 1,500 freedom fighters got up on deck to watch the boat come into New York Harbor to say hello to the Statue of Liberty. There was no Ellis Island anymore, but we did get a welcome from the from Red Cross ladies to and actually the first person who came across the plank was a little Hasidic child, maybe, I don't know, about 2.5 years old. Was he or she was the first one who arrived in America. Anyway, Bekitzer, we were boarding on buses to be taken to this place in New Jersey called Camp Kilmer, and we were there. Like everybody was. It was like a kind of a welcome station, and from there everybody was dispersed to wherever they were supposed to be going to the States. And again, we were given clothes and toiletries, etc., etc. I remember the men received these pajamas, and of course, nobody spoke English. I mean, I can't say nobody. We didn't speak English, and most everybody didn't, because like a couple months before, we had no idea that we're going to be in America. So we didn't learn English in order to, be speaking English. But anyway, so the men, I remember, put on their pajamas, and they were walking around saying, okay, like they were the big Americans. And so these kinds of things. And also we were given some very pretty, again, some red lacquer shoes, like Shabbosdik shoes. And even though it was February, we wanted to put them on. And there was a little bit snow on the ground over there. And we went looking around. Somehow we went to the village, or I don't know, wherever. There was a greengrocer. And again, I have this memory of my mother looking into the greengrocers, and they had tomatoes and red peppers in the window in a vegetable store in February. She had, tears rolling down her face looking at this. She was really so grateful. Anyway, so the next step was to go to wherever our destination was. And the two brothers were, they decided that half the family is going to go to Los Angeles and the other half will go to Miami. My family and my father's brother's family, we went to Miami, and my grandmother and aunts and their families, they went to Los Angeles. So anyway, we were, of course, like in dreamland. Like it was.
You were together.
We were together. So we went to the airport, and or actually this little hotel. And it said hotel motel, and we thought, oh, how cute, like we knew the word hotel, but we didn't know the word motel. And we thought, okay, so there was just, hotel, motel, whatever. But then we found out that motel was like a motor hotel. And actually to say a little bit something from my my husband, his first language was Yiddish, and they used to say motel and not motel. Anyway, so we boarded the airplane, but before that we saw all these people coming from Miami, all suntanned, and they all had these stuffed alligators in their hands. It was still legal to kill alligators.
Oh my.
And so that's my my vision, that my memory about boarding the airplane. We were met, not needed, met by my uncle in Miami. He picked us up, and took us to this hotel that we were staying in. But he pointed out to us when we were driving by the city hall, that on top of the city hall, there's a jail. And if we don't, behave, they'll put us there. Because they didn't know, that these refugees were like Bli Ayin Hara, pretty okay people. And so again, Bikitzer, we arrived in Miami, and I still remember the smell of Miami. It was like ocean smell. It was, I don't think it's like that anymore, but, or maybe I got used to it or something, but 65 years ago, Miami was a much smaller place than it is now. But Baruch Hashem, again, with my parents being resourceful and hardworking, they were able to give the family a beautiful life. And we were able to go to school. We learned English. And actually, we went to a day camp the first summer. And in a couple months, we learned enough English to do okay in school. And we learned how to swim there and things like that. I could tell you all kinds of other stories, but I think that we're kind of run out of time. Baruch Hashem, I'm in Yerushalayim telling the story. That's what I can say.
Where did you meet Reb Shlomo in America? Reb Shlomo, you have.
He was born in Paris, actually, after the war, to parents from Poland, and both of them lost just about everyone. And they met after the war because my husband's father lost his wife and 4 children during the war, and he remarried, who became my husband's mother. And they had 2 children, and actually one of the brothers is still here, and he happens to be in Yerushalayim now, because he made Aliyah. They grew up. They went to Montreal, and that's where they grew up. So, yeah, that's another.
Phase 2.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for coming. And